Welcome to the ISO Show, dispelling myths and sharing tips for success to improve your business with ISO standards, with your host, Mel Blackmore.
Hello and welcome back to the ISO Show. I'm very fortunate to be joined by Steve Mason again, who is our information security expert. Hi Steve, welcome back.
Hi Mel, thanks for having me back.
Great. You'll be sick of me by now doing all these 27,002 podcasts, but I think I'm certainly learning a lot from you. So hopefully our ISO Show listeners will be along the way as well. So just to recap, Steve's going to be covering off another new control from ISO 27002. They're the new controls to support the new version of ISO 27001 when that comes out, which can be applied right now if you wanted to look at getting a copy of ISO 27002. There's nothing to stop you from taking these new controls and applying them within your business. So one of the other topics that we've picked out, now we are just going to be covering a few topics out of the new controls. We're not going to be covering all of them because we have to be mindful that people listening to this podcast may not necessarily want to hear about information security the whole time, week in, week out. So we are just picking a few of those areas that we know could cause a bit of confusion, potentially a bit of debate, and obviously they may be quite alien. You may not have heard of these terms before, and so the whole point of this is just to break that down and explain it in an easy way. So the topic that we're going to be covering today is it's actually web filtering. So web filtering is from A.8.23, and the purpose of this particular one is to protect systems from being compromised by malware and to prevent access to unauthorized web resources. So Steve's going to provide some insights into web filtering. Over to you, Steve.
Thank you, Mel. Well, web filtering, again, it's one of these controls that's been around for a long time. Some organisations have used it much more diligently than others. I remember visiting sort of financial and banking organisations which have had web filtering in place for a long time. And it's mainly because if we look at World Wide Web, it is a place where you find lots of malicious content, malicious sites, and some sites that are deemed inappropriate for business. So it's really protecting businesses from any sort of cyber attack, and also protecting employees, perhaps from upsetting other employees by going onto sites that are really quite unsavoury in many respects and shouldn't be viewed in the workplace. So if we think about some of these sites, I don't know how many times you may have done a search for something and quite innocently found a page that you want to go to, or found an image you want to go to that suits your needs. You click on that image and you suddenly get an alert up saying, warning, phishing site ahead, or something like that. And that's all about web filtering. Okay, and it might be that you're clicking on something that seems innocent. So I often get it if I'm sort of searching for a diagram, perhaps to go into some training, and you see a diagram, you think, well, that looks like a nice diagram. You click on it, and suddenly the alert comes out, it says phishing site ahead. That's because we got web filtering built into our Outlook, and that actually stops me going any further with that and compromising Blackmores systems. So we've already got web filtering built in that sense. And most organisations that have Outlook will have web filtering tools that they can be using. But just bear in mind that the web is probably the most dominant place for cyber crime, and that's really what we're trying to protect ourselves against by adding in the most appropriate filters to protect us.
So in theory, businesses should be doing this already, but obviously it's been highlighted as a specific control in 27002. So could you just explain in a bit more detail about what web filtering is then, please, Steve?
Right, well, web filtering is, as we said, it's just sort of making sure you don't go to areas that could compromise you, but it comes in different forms. It could be a browser-based filter, rather like I was suggesting there, or even a search engine filter. So it's making sure that what you're looking for, what you're searching for is healthy and is not going to compromise you in any way, shape or form. There could be a client-side filter. So this is where you actually put a filter in for a client if you're doing some support for a client, and you make sure that any searching that they do is also being protected, because anything they do, if they're connected to your systems, could infect your systems, and you just don't want to do that. And that's an important thing. When we talk about our clients, we need to think about, what do our clients want from us? What do they expect from us when we're using the internet? And if they expect us to have a locked down network, a web network, then we need to think about how we best do this. I know some employees may think, it's been a bit draconian to lock down the websites and things like that. Well, no, actually, it's not draconian. It's about protecting a business. It's about protecting individuals' jobs and that sort of thing. Because once your business is infected and compromised, your customers might start looking elsewhere, and it affects your business, it affects your job. So, don't see this as a negative, but as a positive in that sense. And also, there might be network-based filters. These are filters that are put into your firewalls that also prevent any sort of risky and vicious content coming through your firewall into your main systems. So filters shouldn't just be at one point; they should be really across the whole of your system, the whole of your network, so that you literally end up just working with clean content in your searches on the web.
Okay, so these different types of web filtering that you've just described, so they're typically used as web filtering solutions to just block any harmful or distracting content.
Yes, yeah.
And so that it's invaluable for companies that are dealing with highly confidential information.
Yeah. I was going to say the sort of content that could include suspected malicious sites which have malware in them, or phishing content. It could be sites that end up sending you all these ridiculous requests for updating your antivirus when you haven't got that brand of antivirus, sort of thing. So it could be that you're going to a site that has illegal content in it, in that sense. So you want to be very careful of that. Websites that have got out-of-date certificates should be avoided. Now, this is one of the things I think the companies are not doing as well as they ought to. Those that do web filtering do it well, and will make sure. But there are lots of companies that don't check the date of a certificate or don't have that in place. So you need to make sure that that's built in, because if your certificate's out of date, if it's compromised in any way, then it should be avoided, because it could be a false certificate, or it could be that that particular organisation isn't taking security very seriously. So that's important. And also think about some of the other filtering that could be put in place, and make sure that websites are built upon the HTTPS or similar platform that protects that site.
So thanks for sharing those different examples of web filtering tools and when they should be used. So I mean, is it safe to say that if we're using just Microsoft and Windows that we're fine with those applications, or are there other things that we need to be considering here?
I mean, generally, yes, if you're using Microsoft and Windows, that should protect you, but we must always be on the alert that we could go into a website that looks like a good, reputable website, but there could be hidden threats in there because somebody has perhaps put a phishing filter over the top of the website, and it might be leading through to something that causes more harm. The first thing I think always to look for, and the thing I always look for, if I'm going to do any payments, I want to make sure there's a little padlock in the bottom corner of the website. That tells me that it's secure. Also, if the payments go through to a third party like WorldPay, then that means it's going through to a secure solution and it's not passing through a third party's hands. So that's another thing to think about. But also think about some of these auction websites that are around. Anybody can set up a site in an auction website, and it might be that you go in there and you think, oh, I think I'll buy one of those. And you click on it, and actually that site is infected with malware and that sort of thing. And that's what we need to be very, very careful of. Is often think also about websites where they're offering things that could be too good to be true. Now, I'll give you a very good example where I got caught out some years ago. This would be before any of this sort of thing really became prevalent. But I was looking for a Hewlett-Packard 2310. That shows you how old this is, because that's an old PDA. And I saw one that was about £100 cheaper than anywhere else. And I thought, you know what, I'll buy that. And so I went in and went online. I put my order in, bang, job done. And a thing came back and said, you should receive your PDA within 7 working days. 7 working days went past, nothing. So I then contacted them. They said, oh, we've just run out of that stock. It'll be another 7 days. Another 7 days went past, that gone. Went back in again. They said, oh, that's now a discontinued product. So I thought, well, that sounds strange, because it's only just come out on the market. How can it be discontinued? And at the same time, the credit card that I used for that started having some very strange amounts coming out of it. First of all, it was only small amounts that came out, something like £1.40, £10. And then finally on one day, £600 disappeared through this credit card. And it was lucky that on all of those days, I could actually identify where I was. And on the day that £600 went out to a gambling site, I was actually at a funeral. So the people that ran the credit card were very good. They gave me all my money back, but I was actually able to give them the intelligence to say, well, this is the website you need to go to, because I think this is where it happened. I know that website got shut down. So, yeah, it was a seemingly innocent website that I went into. It's one of the things that taught me to look for that little padlock in the corner, but just look at very strange activities that come out. Companies may sort of think, well, look, we've got a policy in place. We want our employees to be happy, and also where our business is, it's a long way from town. For them to do any sort of banking work or anything like that, it's a long way to go into town. Well, what I would suggest there is that organisations consider setting up a very small internet cafe in their own businesses. You know, perhaps only about half a dozen at the most computers, which are completely separate from the company's network and go straight out to the outside world. And that way, it's up to the individual to go in and use it as they would use their own internal or home computer and that sort of thing. That way, you still keep your employees happy by giving them some sort of access to be able to do those bits of work that keep the home life happy and personal life happy. Perhaps might detract them during their working day. But at the same time, you keep them off of your networks and keep your networks secure. So that's one solution you could think about here.
Yeah, I think they're great tips there, Steve. You know, from the padlock to the, you know, how you can potentially control and protect your network, but then still giving employees freedom. But I think a lot of employees would if they're going to be doing anything, you know, purchasing something online in their lunch break or whatever, quite often they do it on their own phones now. So I guess that could also be part of a, you know, company policy that actually you restrict all personal use of company assets and just do it on your own, because you can pretty much do anything on your phone now, can't you?
Yes, yeah, exactly. If you've got a good smartphone. I'm a bit of a Luddite when I got to that. I've got a good wife. So she does all my shopping by the phone. She's got one of those lovely phones where she can just wave it across the thing and then it suddenly pays for something, or she'll wave her watch across something and everything gets paid for.
Just miraculously appears then, yeah.
That's right, and I'm still looking for cash in my wallet.
Yeah. No, we know how to spend, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's right.
That's never a problem. Not with me anyway. Okay. That's been awesome, Steve. That's really helped to kind of break down web filtering and the kind of the do's and the don'ts and best practice around that particular topic. So yeah, thanks once again for joining us today.
That's a pleasure.
Great. Well, we've just got one more episode that's going to be coming up on 27002, which will be coming up in the next week or so on the ISO show. So yeah, until then, thanks very much for joining us today, and we look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of the ISO show.
Looking to use ISO standards to drive better business practice? Contact us at blackmoresuk.com to access further information and book your free 15-minute call.